Look at the mountains. Horses of fire cover every ridge. Blazing chariots lined up like an army that should not exist under that ancient sky. Heat rises in waves, but no one below senses the danger. A small town sleeps. Unaware, it is completely surrounded. One man alone will see this, and you will understand why, but not yet. The plain beyond the Jordan River still trembles. Seconds ago, a whirlwind of fire rose into the sky and carried away the prophet Elijah, the greatest of his generation, right before the eyes of the disciple who followed him. No body was left behind. No grave was dug. Only the stillness of the wind and an enormous silence falling over the flat land. On a rock lies a cloak of camel hair, the same rough garment Elijah wore his whole life, on every road, in every battle against kings and false prophets. If you already watched his story on this channel, you saw this cloak fall. If you haven't yet, pause here and watch that first, because everything that follows is born from this exact moment. Elisha bends down and picks up the cloak with both hands, feeling the weight of fabric worn by years of travel. He had been Elijah's disciple a long time, ever since the day he left 12 yoke of oxen in a field to follow him without looking back. Now he stares at an empty sky. No master, no answer, only cloth in trembling hands. Elisha tears his own clothes in half, from top to bottom. The Hebrew gesture of deepest mourning, reserved for losses that defy explanation. Before this story ends, you will see a foreign general step healed from a river, a piece of iron flowed on water like wood, and an entire army vanish in a single night without a trace. He rolls up Elijah's cloak with care and holds it as if it were the only proof that any of this truly happened. This is no ordinary inheritance, no family keepsake. It is the visible mark that a prophet's calling can pass from one man to another, while he still lives in front of witnesses. Across the Jordan, a group watches in complete silence. The sons of the prophets, a school of disciples who followed Elijah at a distance, always one step behind. Minutes earlier, they saw the fire rise into the sky. Now they wait, tense, to see what this new man carrying the cloak would do next. Elisha walks down to the bank of the Jordan, the cloak still rolled in his hand. The river runs wide and muddy before him. The same river he crossed on dry ground just days ago, beside Elijah, feeling walls of water rise on either side. This time he stands there completely alone. He lifts the cloak over the water and cries out a single question, his voice still shaking with grief. Where is the Lord, the God of Elijah? It is not a complaint hurled at an empty sky. It is a test, the first public proof that the power once at work in his master remains available to the servant left behind. For one instant, absolutely nothing happens. The water keeps flowing as before. The sons of the prophets hold their breath on the far bank, and Elisha stands frozen with his arm raised over the river. The silence lasts only seconds, but it is the exact moment his entire mission hangs before every witness there. Elisha strikes the water hard with the cloak, and the river splits into two walls, exactly as it did when Elijah made the same motion just days before. He crosses on dry ground, the rocky bed of the Jordan exposed beneath his bare feet, and the answer he sought arrives without a single word. On the far bank, the sons of the prophets watch the miracle repeat before their own eyes, exactly as they had seen Elijah do it before. They bow to the ground before Elisha and declare, still amazed, the spirit of Elijah rests on Elisha. The transition is confirmed publicly, with no room left for doubt. Elisha travels on to the walled city of Jericho, and the men of the town bring him a problem carried for generations. This city is good to live in, they say, pointing to the houses and fields around them. But the water is bad, and the land does not produce. They are not asking for a miracle, only naming a curse they had accepted. Year after year, the women's children did not survive birth, and entire fields withered before harvest ever came. Jericho's main spring, the only one supplying the whole walled city, carried something sick in every drop, a silent curse that no generation before had managed to break until this exact day. Elisha asks for something strange, almost pointless to anyone listening. A new bowl, never used before, filled with common salt. It is not medicine, and everyone there knew it. Salt does not purify foul water. Anyone in that era understood the basic logic. And that is exactly why the request draws the crowd's full attention. He climbs the narrow path with the bowl toward the spring that feeds the whole city of Jericho. A crowd follows at a distance, curious, skeptical, whispering among themselves, unsure whether they are about to witness a miracle or just another public failure in front of everyone gathered there. In Israel's tradition, salt was a symbol of covenant, a promise that does not decay, does not spoil, does not shift with time, unlike almost everything else. By using salt, Elisha was not treating the water chemically. He was declaring, before witnesses, a new covenant over that spring. The people gather at the edge of the spring in tense silence. Some doubt openly, arms crossed. Others remember the Red Sea, the manna in the desert, the fire that fell on Carmel years earlier in front of Elijah. If the Master's Spirit truly rests on the disciple, it is now, before them all, that it will show. Elisha holds the new bowl over the still water. He does not pray aloud, does not make long or theatrical gestures. He simply speaks one short line, giving God the full credit for whatever happens next, and then, without hesitation, turns the bowl over the spring. Generations of townspeople had already tried everything, filtering the water, digging another well, switching sources, calling in healers from outside. Nothing solved the problem for long. And now, in front of everyone, a prophet who just arrived promises to fix with one handful of salt what no one had managed in decades of trying. What Elisha is about to do will not be a passing relief, a patch that lasts only a few weeks. People in the region still point to this spring today, telling visitors it has never turned bad again, not for a single day since that distant morning. He lifts the bowl and pours the salt into the spring, declaring that he does this in the name of the Lord. In the next instant, before the eyes of the whole crowd, the water that had bubbled up murky and foul begins running clear, crystal clean, as though it had never been cursed. Weeks later, the fields around Jericho begin turning green as they had not in years. Harvests finally succeed. Families give birth without complications. And the whole city, which once lived in fear of its own water, now drinks in peace every single day, no longer afraid of what the water might do to them. Elisha leaves Jericho behind and climbs the stone road toward Bethel, one of the most important religious centers in Israel. The journey is long, the sun harsh over the hills, and the prophet walks alone, carrying the cloak that is now his by right, before the whole watching nation. The scene shifts to the dry valley of Edom, where three allied armies, Israel, Judah, and Edom, have marched for 7 days against the rebel king of Moab. The water has completely run out. Men and animals begin collapsing under the merciless sun, far from any known river or well. The three kings gather in their tents, desperate. Without water, the entire army will die in the desert before it even faces the enemy in open battle, defeated not by the sword of Moab, but by thirst in a valley that seems chosen on purpose to wipe them all out. The king of Israel cries out before the other two. Has the Lord called the three kings together only to hand them over to Moab, with no chance at all? It is the king of Judah who calmly remembers there is a prophet nearby, Elisha, the one who served Elijah faithfully. Summoned to the camp in the middle of the crisis, Elisha does not hide his discomfort with the king of Israel, a man who follows foreign gods and idols. Even so, for the sake of the king of Judah, he agrees to help, but first asks for something unusual. Bring me a harpist. Music is not decoration or distraction in that tense moment. At several points in Scripture, it prepares a prophet's heart to hear God's voice clearly, quieting recent anger and the noise of the camp around him. As the harpist plays, the hand of the Lord comes upon Elisha. Beside Elisha stands Gehazi, his personal and closest servant, a man who will reappear more than once through this story, for good and, later, for evil. For now, he simply watches in silence and obeys every order the prophet gives, waiting to see what kind of man this new master truly is. Elisha gives an order that sounds completely absurd to soldiers dying of thirst. Dig trenches all across the dry valley floor, from one end to the other. No cloud appears on the horizon. No sign of rain announces itself. And yet the men pick up their tools and start digging under the harsh sun. The prophet explains, with unusual calm for the situation, "You will see no wind and no rain, and yet this valley will fill with water to the very brim." The soldiers look up at a sky without a single cloud and keep digging anyway, because at that point, they have no other option left. Night falls slowly over the valley of Edom. The three armies lie down beside the still empty trenches, their canteens completely dry, waiting for something none of them can quite explain to one another. No one sleeps well that night. Everyone listens to the silence, straining to hear water that has not yet come. In the early morning, with no cloud, no wind, and no thunder announcing anything, water begins flowing through the trenches dug the night before, coming from a direction no one can quite explain, perhaps the distant mountains of Edom, soaked by rain that fell far away. Soon the entire valley is flooded with clean water. At sunrise, the sun rises deep red over the still water-pooled in the freshly dug trenches. From a distance, the army of Moab looks at the valley and sees what looks like fresh blood, concluding, wrongly, that the three allied kings turned against each other during the night. Confident that only easy plunder remains, the soldiers of Moab march down unarmed and careless into the enemy camp. Instead, they find three armies rested, hydrated, and fully ready for combat. The victory God promised arrives without Elisha ever having to lift a single weapon in his own hand. The scene shifts to a simple, poor house. A widow, wife of one of the sons of the prophets who has died, runs to Elisha weeping loudly. Her husband died not long ago and left a debt too large to cover, and now the creditor is coming to collect exactly what she has no way to pay. By the law of that time, an unpaid creditor could legally take a debtor's sons as slaves until the entire debt was worked off over years of forced labor. The widow has only two small sons, and the creditor is already on his way to her house to take them away for good. Elisha asks what she still has left in the house. The answer is almost nothing. Only a small jar of oil, barely enough to anoint a body. Nothing else in the entire home. No hidden money, no valuables to sell, no wealthy relatives she can turn to in her desperation. Elisha's order sounds just as strange as the salt back in Jericho. Go and borrow empty vessels from every neighbor you can find, not just a few, as many as you can possibly gather. The widow obeys without understanding why, and her sons help carry each vessel into the house. With every vessel now inside, piled across the floor, Elisha gives his final and most definite instruction. Shut the door, you and your sons alone, and start pouring oil from your one jar into each vessel, one at a time, until every single one is completely full. The closed door is not just a practical detail. It is a miracle performed away from public eyes, with no audience, no applause from a crowd. Proof that God tends to the private need of one unknown widow with the very same care he shows before kings and entire armies. The widow tips the jar over the first empty vessel, her hands trembling. Oil pours out and fills it to the brim and keeps coming without pause. She moves to the second vessel, then the third, and the thin stream never stops, as if the small jar had become an endless spring. One by one, the borrowed vessels fill up completely and are set aside by the sons, breathless from running back and forth, until the whole floor of the house is covered in containers full of oil, more liquid wealth than that family had ever held in their hands at once. When only one last empty vessel remains in the corner, the widow tells her son, still pouring, "Bring me another." His answer changes everything in that instant. There are no more vessels left. It was not the woman's lack of faith that stopped the miracle, only the limit of what she had managed to borrow. In the exact instant the last empty vessel disappears from the room, the oil also stops flowing without warning. Not one drop more, not one drop less than what was needed. God's provision matched with perfect precision the size of that poor family's faith and preparation. Elisha tells the widow to sell all the oil she has gathered, pay off the entire debt without a shortfall, and live on what remains with her own sons in peace. A house that stood one step from losing two boys to slavery ends that day free, with an income that simply did not exist that morning. The story shifts to the town of Shunem, home to a wealthy woman, respected and known throughout the region. Every time Elisha passes through on his travels between towns, she insists, with firm gentleness, that he stop and eat in her house before continuing on his way. Noticing the prophet passes by so often, almost on a fixed route, the woman proposes something generous to her husband. Build a small room on the flat roof of the house, set aside only for Elisha, so he always has somewhere to rest whenever he passes through town. The room receives only 4 pieces of furniture, chosen with care and no excess. A simple bed, a table, a chair, and a lamp for the night. Enough for a man of God to rest, eat, sit, and have light. Nothing more than that. No luxury at all, only the essentials offered with sincere honor. Touched by her constant hospitality, Elisha asks Gehazi what could be done for her in return for so much care. The answer comes from the servant himself, who has noticed the details. She has no son, and her husband is too old. Elisha calls her and promises, looking her in the eyes, "Next year, about this time, you will hold a son in your arms." The woman reacts with caution, almost resistance at the promise. "Do not deceive me, man of God. Do not toy with my hope." She had never asked for this son, never once complained of not having him in any of his visits. The promise comes from God's pure generosity, not from a wish she herself had ever spoken aloud. The promise comes true exactly as spoken. Years later, the boy runs freely through the wheat fields during harvest, playing beside his father's workers, strong and healthy, living proof, running under the sun, that the prophet's word had come true to the very letter, just as she had once refused to believe. On an ordinary harvest day, with no warning at all, the boy grabs his head and cries out to his father, pain plain on his face. My head hurts." Carried quickly to his mother, he lies quiet in her lap until noon, and then, suddenly, he stops breathing. Meanwhile, in Gilgal, a region gripped by famine, young prophets cook wild herbs in a large pot, not knowing they mixed in bitter gourd from a poisonous vine picked by mistake in the field. At the first taste, the men cry out in terror. There is death in the pot. Elisha throws in a handful of flour, and the poison vanishes. Everyone eats safely afterward, without telling anyone. Not her husband, not the servants. The Shunammite saddles a donkey in a hurry and rides straight from Mount Carmel, where she knows, with certainty, she will find Elisha. The whole way there, she keeps repeating, "It is well," even though nothing at all is well. From high on Carmel, still far off, Elisha spots the woman approaching and instantly recognizes something wrong in her hurried riding, so unlike her usual pace. He sends Gehazi running down the path to meet her and ask if all is well with her husband, and with the boy. The woman ignores Gehazi completely on the way and goes straight to Elisha, throwing herself to the ground and gripping his feet without letting go. Gehazi tries to pull her away, thinking the gesture excessive, but the prophet stops him at once. "Leave her alone. Her soul is in deep bitterness, and the Lord has not yet told me why." Through held-back tears, she finally manages to tell him, "The boy is dead, right there on the bed in the roof room." Elisha does not hesitate for a second. He orders Gehazi to run ahead with the prophet's own staff in hand, while he and the woman follow behind, as fast as the animals can carry them. Elisha's instruction to Gehazi is precise and urgent. Tuck your cloak in your belt to run faster, stop to greet absolutely no one along the way, and lay the staff on the boy's face the moment you reach the house. Gehazi obeys without question and races ahead of everyone, the staff firm in his hand. Gehazi arrives, does exactly as ordered. Nothing happens. The boy stays without breath on the bed. A sacred object does not replace the man God chose to use. When Elisha arrives, he shuts the door, prays alone, and lies over the boy's body, mouth to mouth, eyes to eyes. The body warms. The boy sneezes 7 times and opens his eyes alive. The scene changes. A foreign general rises from the waters of the Jordan for the 7th time, and his skin is no longer what it was minutes ago. Just before, he had resisted with all his strength, furious, almost walking away. Now he stares at his own arms, unable to understand how he nearly refused the simplest cure of his life. His name is Naaman, commander-in-chief of Aram's army, one of the most powerful men in the whole region, and a personal favorite of the king of Aram himself. Victorious battle after battle, respected by everyone around him, except for one thing: a severe skin disease that no physician at court, with all the era's knowledge, could stop or explain. During an earlier raid on Israelite villages, a young Israelite girl was captured and taken far from home to serve Naaman's wife as a slave. with no power and no standing in that foreign household. It is she, of all people, who speaks the simple sentence that changes everything. If only my master stood before the prophet in Samaria. Naaman takes the matter straight to the king of Aram, who writes a formal letter to the king of Israel requesting the cure, the way one ruler asks a favor of another. Reading the letter, the king of Israel tears his own robes in total panic. Am I God, to kill and give life, that this man sends me a leper to heal? Naaman travels with a shipment fit for a high-ranking general, a great quantity of silver, gold, and fine garments, enough to buy the loyalty of any physician or priest in the region. He fully expects, by every rule of his world, to pay for his cure the same way he would pay for any service of value. Naaman's luxurious chariot, with its servants and armed escort, stops before Elisha's simple, unadorned house. No palace in sight, no grand entrance such as he expected to find. The general steps down, expecting to be received with all the ceremony owed to a commander of Aram's army. Elisha does not even come out of the house to greet him, which already feels like an insult to a man of Naaman's rank. Instead, he sends a messenger with a short, direct instruction. Go, wash 7 times in the Jordan River, and your flesh will be fully restored. No ceremony, no touch, not one word from the prophet himself. Naaman explodes with rage before the shut door. He expected a ritual worthy of his own name and reputation. The prophet stepping out, calling on the Lord aloud, waving a hand over the visible wound. Instead, he received a simple order delivered by a mere servant, without even being received in person. Are the rivers of Damascus not better than all the waters of Israel? He shouts, turning to storm off without looking back. It is Naaman's own servants who talk him into reconsidering. If the prophet had asked something difficult, you would have done it. Why not do something this simple? The young prophets cut wood on the banks of the Jordan to build new lodgings, each with his own axe. In the middle of the work, the iron head of a borrowed axe slips from its handle and sinks straight into the river. Elisha cuts a stick, throws it at the exact spot, and the heavy iron rises on its own, floating like light wood. The detail matters. Iron does not float, has never floated, and everyone there knew it perfectly well. In that era, a borrowed iron tool cost more than many men could repay at once. Losing 1 minute debt almost impossible to settle alone. God solved the small problem of an ordinary man, not a king. At another time of famine in the region, a man brings Elisha 20 loaves of barley bread and fresh grain as a first-fruits offering from the harvest. Elisha gives an order that sounds impossible to the crowd. Give this to the people to eat. 100 men waiting to be fed with only 20 loaves of bread. The servant questions him, incredulous at the impossible math. How will 20 loaves feed 100 hungry men at once? Elisha repeats the order calmly, promising that the word of the Lord guarantees plenty for everyone present. In the end, all eat until they're satisfied, and food is still left over after the last man finishes. Back to the general story. Naaman returns to Elisha's house, now fully healed, insisting on paying with all the silver and gold he brought. Elisha refuses everything, flatly, without hesitation. As the Lord lives, whom I serve, I will accept nothing from you. Naaman insists again and again, and the prophet keeps refusing. Gehazi watches Naaman's chariot pull away, loaded with all that refused wealth, and thinks to himself that his master went too far with such generosity. Without telling Elisha, he runs after the chariot down the road, determined to claim at least some of that fortune for himself. Gehazi catches up to Naaman out of breath and invents an excuse on the spot. 2 young prophets have just arrived, and Elisha, after all, needs silver and clothes for them. Naaman generously hands over double what was asked. Gehazi hides it all at home, then returns and lies to his own master's face about where he has been. The scene shifts to Dothan, where Elisha is staying. At dawn, his servant wakes to find Aram's army surrounding the town. Terrified, he cries out, "Oh no, my lord, what shall we do?" Elisha prays, and the servant's eyes open. The same hillsides you saw at the beginning of this story, covered in horses and chariots of fire. Now you know where that was. The king of Aram, furious that Elisha keeps warning the king of Israel about every ambush planned in advance, sends an entire army, horses, chariots, and a great number of soldiers to surround the small town of Dothan overnight and capture just one man. Facing the visible army surrounding the city, Elisha answers his frightened servant with a line that has echoed across generations. Do not be afraid, for those who are with us are more than those who are with them. The unseen army outweighs, by far, the visible one outside the walls. Elisha prays again, but with a very different request, that the enemy army be struck blind right there. The Aramean soldiers still see shapes and colors around them, but lose every ability to recognize where they are or who stands before them. A confusion only the hand of God could cause. Elisha approaches the very soldiers who came to capture him and offers to lead them to the man they are looking for, without revealing who he is. Blind and confused, they follow him without suspecting a thing, straight into the fortified capital of Samaria, now surrounded by the whole army of Israel. Inside the walls of Samaria, the eyes of the Aramean soldiers finally open, and they realize, horrified, exactly where they are. The king of Israel asks whether he should kill them all at once. Elisha orders the opposite. Serve these men bread and water, prepare a full banquet, and send them home in peace. The decision seems contradictory for a nation at constant war, but it works. After that unexpected banquet, Aram's raiding parties stop invading Israel's territory, at least for a good while. One single act of mercy achieves what no battle had managed before, not with swords, but with bread. The relief does not last forever. Sometime later, Ben-Hadad, king of Aram, gathers his whole army again and surrounds Samaria completely, cutting off every way food could enter the city. The famine inside the walls grows so severe that a donkey's head sells for a fortune in silver. During the night, the Lord makes the Aramean camp hear the sound of a great army approaching. Chariots, horses, an unseen power greater than their own. Seized by total panic, the soldiers flee into the darkness, abandoning tents, horses, food, and silver behind them, without looking back even once. Outside the closed gates of Samaria lie 4 lepers, cast out of the city long ago because of their contagious disease. With absolutely nothing left to lose, facing the same famine that threatens them too, they decide to surrender to the enemy camp at night and find it entirely empty, abandoned, intact, waiting just for them. The 4 run from tent to tent, eating, drinking, hiding silver and gold, until their conscience grows too heavy to bear. We are not doing right, they say to one another, and run to tell the whole city what they found. From the worst famine to complete abundance, Samaria's fate changes in a single night. Years pass. Elisha continues advising the kings of Israel into deep old age, and even in his final days, already sick, he instructs King Joash on how to face Aram in a coming battle. After decades of faithful service, the prophet who received the double portion of the Spirit finally dies and is buried. A year later, during a hurried burial, men see raiders approaching and throw a dead man's body into Elisha's tomb to escape in time. The instant it touches the prophet's bones, the dead man rises to his feet, alive, before everyone. Even after death, God's power over him had not run out. If this story moved you, leave your amen below and subscribe for more.